Hey, everybody. If you are an attorney, you've had many situations, many situations that just didn't make sense, where people involved, and not just the litigants, not just your clients, but the attorneys, the judges, the experts, they just did things that did not make any sense. And when someone behaves in a way that just doesn't add up, goes against their best interest, goes against common sense or logic, when the deal goes sideways for no apparent reason, when something that should be straightforward turns into a big fat mess, here is what is going on. Here's what went wrong. You're approaching this as a logical situation with the assumption that people behave logically, that they make decisions in their best interest. That's not true. That's just fundamentally not true. Including professionals, including attorneys, including judges. I'm Brita Long, and I've been licensed since 1997. And for the last 8 years, I've done deep personal development work. And that changed everything about how I approach life, about what I see, and how I practiced. And this is how I see how personal development will change how you practice. It will improve it greatly. And this is what I wish I would have known many years ago. We are taught that the law is the law, and you apply the facts to the law, and everything works out. That is not true. That is not any attorney's experience. Things go sideways because we don't have a law problem, we have a people being people problem. And your clients, their clients, opposing counsel, the judges, your staff, we're all people. And people, as much as we like to think we're logical, we're not. And the people who continue to say they are logical, in my experience, are the worst. They make the most emotional decisions. But generally, people, we make emotional decisions and then we back it up with logic. And there is no one better than that, better than doing that than attorneys. We can rationalize anything. That doesn't mean we're any less emotional than anyone else. And when you're treating something like an intellectual puzzle to be solved instead of an emotional issue for people, you're not going to win. Things are going to go sideways and you're not going to understand why. Because an emotional issue must have an emotional solution. You cannot solve an emotional problem with an intellectual solution. You can't. And if you are an attorney, you had better be able to understand what is going on that people aren't telling you. What is going on underneath the surface? Otherwise, things just look crazy. So I'll give you some examples. Years ago, we had a client who had paid a lot of money for an estate plan. At the time, like amazing money. They'd come in, they had done the hard part. We had done the design meeting. We had asked, they had answered all of the tough questions. Literally, all they needed to do was review it, sign it, done. And they ghosted us. Absolutely ghosted us. I don't know how many phone calls and emails and letters we wrote. Now, does that make any logical sense? Of course not. And these people were highly intelligent, highly sophisticated. These were not dumb people. That's not a flaky client, although it appears that they're a flaky client. That is someone who wants to do the right thing, who wants to be responsible, who wants to do right by their kids, but at the end of the line is terrified. is terrified of death, of family conflict, of making it real. Signing makes it real. I don't know, because they ghosted me. I know that I was treating that as a logical issue, though. Just come in and sign and blah, blah, blah. I know that I wasn't addressing what was probably going on under the surface because I didn't see it at the time. Now I do. So, that even in non-emotional practice areas, let's say contract law, negotiable instruments, something that's pretty banal, that contract, the terms become real complicated real fast. That deal goes sideways real fast because the people involved, especially the one you don't know their background, you don't know their past, you don't know what hurts and traumas and fears they have. They're bringing all of that with them, but you don't know it. Their assumptions, their fears, all of that. And you're just meeting that with this legal analysis and then wondering why things go south. Some practice areas like criminal law, family law, it's really easy to see the emotions there. They're on the surface for everyone to look at. But still, we sit there and go, okay, this makes no sense. You're spending $50,000 on attorney's fees to argue over $10,000. Now, I think hopefully you understand it ain't about the $10,000. But you're still probably approaching it as this makes no sense. You're right, because it's not up here. You have to get below the surface a little bit to see what's actually going on. Now, I'm not suggesting that you become a therapist or you need to go get a psychology degree, but there is a way for you to be able to get really pretty good at reading other people, about being able to sense what's actually going on in the room and with people. And I can tell you, it's like a superpower. It really, really is. Even if you can just tell something's not right here. I can't tell what it is, but something is not right here. And I need to be careful. I need to slow down. I need to pay more attention. That's good enough. Even with judges, you think that judges are logical? Well, hopefully anybody who's practiced more than 10 minutes knows that that's not true, okay? Judges are people too. They have their own schmutz that they bring. And in some cases, it's worse because they have a sense of power and immunity. They can get away with a lot, and sometimes they do. But if you can read people, I'm telling y'all, it is like a superpower. So what changes, how is this related to personal development work? When you do this internal work on yourself, okay, you're not doing it generally to, be a better attorney, which that's part of it, but hopefully you're doing it for yourself. But when you start doing this internal work for yourself and you start to be able to get to know yourself better and read yourself better, you automatically start being able to read other people and see what they're doing because you've been there. You also, when you start to, depending on where you are, when you start to heal and you start to recover from, say, codependency or being in narcissistic relationships, then let me tell you, you can spot those. You can smell a narcissist from 100 miles away, and you know how to deal with that person. Whether they are opposing counsel or opposing party or an expert or a judge, you know how to deal with that person. And how you deal with a narcissist is almost exactly the opposite of how you deal with someone who's not a narcissist. And you better know that. Holy cow. I remember one case, it was the worst family law case I'd had in my entire career. It was my first real, holy crap, narcissist on the other side. And it took me a good probably 5 to 6 months to begin to wrap my brain around what the heck is happening here. Because everything that I did that I would have done in a normal case, it wasn't working. It was not working. And I even managed to get my client, the child, pretty darn quickly. I mean, within a couple months. And it still just kept going. It kept going. It kept going. And so I had to learn a lot. I had to find out what the heck I was dealing with here. And once I finally figured out, oh, okay, this is what she wants. This is what she wants. Oh, she wants the drama. She wants the attention. She wants the contact with the opposing side. Oh, okay. Then we could deal with it. Okay? So you can't understand other people until you begin to understand yourself really, really well. Okay? And some other things of this that will help with you being an attorney is with this work, with this internal work, you are learning to regulate yourself. You're not doing these highs and lows and highs and lows and highs and lows all the time. You're not as reactive. You know, when somebody on the other side pushes a button, it's like, okay, good luck. Versus, replying in keyboard warrior. You're not taking things personally anymore. And boy, I used to be bad about that. I used to be bad about that. When somebody, how should I put this? You are just thinking more clearly, which makes you practice better. You're able to listen to your instinct. I had a case, this was well into my personal development, where we came on late. It was right before a trial, and we were scrambling. We could do it, knew we could do it, but we were scrambling. And I certainly tried to settle the case. I had not worked with opposing counsel before, and he seemed reasonable, but something was off. Something was off. My instinct was just like, I can't even articulate what he did or what he said. And then he asked me for a continuance. I hadn't asked for a continuance. He asked me for a continuance, which logically it made sense. Logically, it would have been in my client's best interest. But my instinct was like, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what game he's playing, but he's playing a game, and no. And so I said, no, thank you. We're ready to go to trial. And sure enough, he had been playing some kind of game. He didn't want the judge. What this work allowed me to do in that case, I still think I would have done a pretty good job before. Nothing like I did now. I was able to read the people pretty well. I was able to read my client, who was not logical, and prep him. I could see, I didn't know what his history was, but I could see he was a people pleaser, and he had said yes when he should have said no throughout this case, which got him in trouble because he would say yes to agreed orders that he couldn't comply with. So I had to really prep him. We were going to trial. He couldn't just be a people pleaser and say yes. He couldn't do that. Had I not been able to read him, I couldn't have prepped him for that. I couldn't have had a very honest conversation with him of, hey, I think that you say yes sometimes when you don't mean it. Is that true? Oh, I do that all the time. Okay. I was able to read opposing party like a book. Okay, she wants people to think she's the good one. Okay. Okay. She she wants people to think she's the reasonable one. Okay. And yet she was absolutely unequivocally not. It was it was like fish in a barrel. Opposing counsel. He wanted to needle me. He wanted to make it very clear that he knew the judge. They were. Even though he'd wanted to get rid of her. Judge was a good judge. She wasn't favoring him in any way, shape, or form. But he wanted to needle me. And you know what? 10 years before, 5 years ago, it probably would have worked a little bit. It didn't work at all now. Didn't work at all now. That trial went so much better than it would have. My client ended up in such a better position than when he started trial. It was not even funny. I mean, holy cow. Such a better position. And it was a far more enjoyable experience. And I don't like trial. But I was able to just keep it regulated. I also wasn't codependent anymore. It wasn't just in my head I knew that I hadn't made this mess, that I wasn't responsible for my client or his children. I knew it internally. I didn't feel like I was responsible. And by the way, I think that made me do a better job too, because it took some of the pressure off. I still absolutely was going to do the best job I could, but I didn't feel like his children's lives and futures were up to me to convince that judge of whatever. I didn't create these facts. I didn't make the mess. And I'd always known that intellectually before, but now I knew it internally. Night and day difference. When you do this work, you'll have more patience. Our clients get their cues from us on how to behave. And I can tell you, more patience is generally a pretty good thing in the legal world. You are going to, again, be able to trust your instincts. You're also going to attract better clients. You're going, I don't understand how all this works. All I know is it does. When you level up the people that want to come and work with you. You get more reasonable people. You get more emotionally stable people. You're kind of repelling the people who aren't. You're also just more able to just be honest with people. I had one guy come in, this was a couple years ago, and he came in with very unreasonable expectations. He hadn't seen his daughter in a while, and I want to see my daughter, and I want to see her, now, and the things. And before, I would have felt pressure to like, oh, get him what he wants, or then if I couldn't get him what he wants, then almost be, how should I describe it? Almost be kind of judgmental of him, like, that's ridiculous that he would expect that. I can't do that. That's okay. And this time, I really just came at it with, I am going to serve the crap out of this guy for the next hour and a half. I'm going to be honest with him. Here's how you get a relationship back with your daughter. I wasn't going to buy his nonsense when he was, oh, well, I haven't done my supervised visits in 7 months because blah, 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 blah. I said, well, that's not how a judge is going to see it, because you had the money to do X, Y, and Z, right? Yeah. And I came at it with love instead of fear. And what was really interesting about that was that this is a guy who came in not taking any responsibility. Nothing was his fault. He was the victim, all of the things. Even in 90 minutes, he had been able to get to a point. Now, I don't know if it stuck, but he got to a point where he got it. Okay, if I want to see my daughter, I'm going to have to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to have to own that I haven't done X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to have to make that a bigger priority than this and this and this. His demeanor had completely changed. I've been doing this a very long time. What changed was my demeanor changed. How I approached it changed. And that is absolutely only as a result of me doing my own internal work. I was a good attorney. I was AV rated, well respected by my peers, clients. I still have old clients from 20 years ago that will reach out every once in a while and say thank you. But I was still missing the emotional part of this. I was still, even in family law, like, oh, go to therapy, go to therapy. Not my problem, go to therapy, go to therapy. Thinking that was going to fix everything. What I will tell you is how I practiced then versus how I practiced once I started doing personal development work is night and day. Night and day. And the attorneys that I work with are having the same experience. Now, what I will say is do not do personal development work, this internal work, only because you want to be a better attorney, only because you want to perfect your craft. Okay? Don't do that. It's not going to work. Because this work is only as good as you are open to it and you are willing to feel some uncomfortable feelings and you are willing to change. And that is a high hurdle to get over for work, to be a better attorney. You have to want this for itself. You have to want this for you. And you will be 10,000 times a better attorney once you start. So if you've been curious about this kind of work at all, or and sometimes we just need more of a reason that is more than just ourselves. Like if we just say, I'm just going to do it for myself, I don't know about that, but oh, if I'm going to do it to be a better attorney that I can justify, fine, I'll take it. Fine. If you are curious about what I am talking about, internal work or coming to a workshop or working, just click below, go to the website, readalong.com, and get more information. And I want to say thank you so much for watching. Take care.